Hello again, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Dottino and Matt Citak with you, and in just a couple of moments, we will head out to Phoenix, Arizona, and check in with a senior writer of Giants.com, Dan Salomone, who was out at the NFL owners' meetings, which actually began yesterday. Today is Monday, in case you haven't looked at your calendar yet this morning, and we will find out what John Harbaugh had to say. I believe he had about a half hour or so to meet with the media during the annual NFL Coaches Breakfast that is always held at the league meetings. As always, we come to you from the Giants podcast studio presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. If you try to get hold of us, it'll be 201-939-4513. We'll get to phone calls after, of course, we talk to Dan and get the update from Phoenix. As well, you could always go to hashtag Giants Chat. We do know that we are also available on the YouTube, New York Giants YouTube page, simulcasting there, as well as on the Giants mobile app. So you can always get us through any one of those vehicles as well. And if you're not watching us live, catch us on the archive, as well as the entire Giants podcast network and all of the Giants mobile app at your Apple podcast networks and all your favorite podcast networks. You can get us there later on in the archive. First up, Matt, good to see you again. It's been a big week for not only the opening of baseball season and March Madness, which was really mad yesterday when you consider UConn's come from behind victory. That was absolutely incredible. And then, of course, we still have football stuff to talk about. But I'm curious, before we get to Dan, thoughts about how opening day went with your New York Mets. They won.
We did, yeah. It was a nice game, nice opening series.
You were looking forward to that for a long time.
I was. I'm a huge Mets fan. Mets and Giants are my two favorite teams, so I was very much looking forward to opening day. It's a good opening series. They came a little short yesterday in extra innings, but 2 out of 3 to open the season. I can't complain about that.
See, now I gave you that rose, that bouquet of flowers to start things off, because I also can tell you that the Yankees are 3-0 and only allowed 1 run in their 3-game set against the San Francisco Giants.
It's a good start to the Yankee season.
Good start for both. Good start for both. Right now, it's a good time to be a New York baseball fan. Basketball fan, well, a little disgusted with the Knicks last night. What are you going to do? Hockey
They just came off a big winning streak, though.
They did. They
can't win every game.
No, can't win every game.
Knicks are in good shape. That's coming from a Brooklyn Nets fan.
Yeah,
well, the Knicks are in solid shape.
I wasn't thrilled with the way they played last night. I wasn't thrilled. But anyway, it is what it is. Johnny Mac, do we have Dan on the line already? Not yet? Okay, so Dan will be on the line with us momentarily.
Well, Coach John Harbaugh did, as you mentioned, he spoke, and Dan will give us a full, in-depth recap of what happened.
Right.
But just to touch on one thing that
I just wanted to ask you whether there were any news items that came out, because John Schmelk and I were taping a whole bunch of college prospect preview shows for the last hour and a half. So please, you're monitoring this.
Yeah. So
what's the highlight?
I would say no, breaking news, which we didn't expect Coach to break any big news when he spoke to the media. But one thing that he did talk about, which now allows us to at least mention it, is he did mention that training camp will be in West Virginia.
Oh, he decided to talk about it.
It had been reported weeks ago. I'm sure someone asked him the reasoning behind it or whatever. I don't know. I was not there, obviously, but he did mention it. So now we can officially say
it's really happening.
That training camp will be in West Virginia. We'll both be there. Looking forward to it. It'll be obviously a different experience than the training camps, at least that I've been around for the last 7 years. Going down to West Virginia it's only going to be max of 2 weeks. It's not like the entire end of July into Labor Day weekend will be there, but it'll be probably about 2 weeks. And then he also mentioned that at some point I'm assuming after that period in West Virginia, that there will be 1 or 2 joint practices with other teams. He didn't specify who.
How about that?
I think I'm sure he obviously has probably a better idea who it will be with, but we don't know the preseason schedule yet. And a lot of time the joint practices are set up with whoever you're playing in the preseason. So you get a day or two of practice against that team before the preseason matchup, as you've seen many times in years past. That's, I guess, sort of the more newsy things to come out of it. He was asked about several other topics, current players, new free agent signings, at least one player that is still a free agent that there's been a lot of just overall buzz around. A certain wide receiver that used to play for the New York Giants. Of course, he was asked about him. He spoke about him. I'll let Dan go into more detail about all of that fun stuff if we can get him on the phone.
Yeah, we're having a little technical issue here, but we're going to try to see if we can make our way through that. In the meantime, very interesting thought, though. So he gave the confirmation of the New York Post report, which came out, that said we going to West Virginia. He did not give the dates, though, right?
No, but I would assume it's just the start of training camp. The 2 weeks leading up to the first preseason week.
Here's why I bring that up, because I wonder if that would be relevant in terms of to who the dual practices might be with.
Yeah,
or the dual practice is going to be after the Giants come back to New Jersey. That, you know what I'm saying? That could be relevant, because if you're going to be down in one of the Carolinas, near the Carolinas, because it's right across the border, maybe the Panthers are a likely candidate.
It's possible. I mean, the Giants also this coming season will have 2 road preseason games, since they have 9 home regular season games. So it could be before, those games in whatever cities they're in, because, for the same reason that the Giants are not having training camp here, it could be the same reason why they choose to try to have those joint practices elsewhere, not in, East Rutherford. We don't know. We haven't, in that regard, we genuinely don't know anything yet. Coach just mentioned today to the media that at least one for sure in terms of joint practices, and that there's a possibility for a second, and it would be 1 day apiece against 2 different teams.
Now, one thing John and I had talked about on our last show last week, when someone had obviously brought up the whole training camp thing, just to make that very clear, that came to pass, or at least the discussions on what they were going to do, long before John Harbaugh was actually hired as the Giants head coach. So this
long before.
And I think that's important to note, too, because this was not something that he asked for, or that the Giants acquiesced and said, okay, we'll do this because you want it. No. This was something that was in the works long before, and it was because of the World Cup.
Yes.
Okay? And I think that's important for people to understand, because a lot of folks are thinking, well, Harbaugh wanted to move him down there. No, that's not what happened.
No, this was done last year. When he was still very much the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes. And just so you are aware, folks, if you haven't been aware, and I want to make sure that you are, because it's very important if you travel around these parts at all. The World Cup, they're going to build, the FIFA people are going to basically build a mini city in the parking lot here at the Sports Authority property. And it's going to be quite congested. And security is going to be at a very, very high, in fact, dare I say, ultra high level. Obviously, we're talking about a tremendous amount of people here, international people, high-level people, a lot of money invested in this. It's a big, 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 big deal. And so they're going to build a mini city in the parking lot, and by the time the World Cup is done, and I think the last game was July 19th, as I recall.
Around there, yeah.
Okay? By the time they're done with the games, they still have to break everything down. So it becomes absolutely insane to expect the Giants to hold a normal training camp here while they're breaking down a mini city literally a few yards away.
Yeah, I mean,
it just doesn't make any sense.
No, that would be very, very difficult logistically. And honestly, I know it might be, a disappointment to some fans who love coming to training camp every summer, and we love having you guys here, but given the logistics, it would have been just an absolute nightmare to try to have fans come here. The thousands of fans that come to each of those open training camp practices. So for, at least for this upcoming summer, we'll be down in West Virginia. And I don't know what it'll be in terms of what the practices will be like down there in terms of open or not. I'm sure we'll have some sort of announcement sometime in the near future, but yeah, we're just going to have to do something a little different this summer. It's, again, the World Cup does not happen often that the World Cup is literally playing in our stadium. So while it is inconvenient in some ways, it's also very cool in other ways. So
exactly. So just wanted to get that out of the way. We did explain it on one of the shows last week, but I thought for those of you who may have missed it, it's important that you understand exactly how that came to pass and why it's important. Because for safety reasons and everything else, logistically, it would have been a nightmare to have camp here and then have the fans come here while all that stuff is going on right next door.
Yeah.
Would have been nuts. All right, we're going to still effort to get Dan Salomone on. However, we do have an issue with our phone lines right now. So what I've been told is that we don't have proper phone line communication. So please, folks, go to our YouTube page, New York Giants on YouTube, and because we're simultaneously streaming live there, you can send your questions and comments to us there. Okay. Also, you can go to Twitter and go #GiantsChat. Those are the two places where you can still get a hold of us, ask us questions, make some comments, see if we can build some stuff off of that. In the meantime,
or add us on Twitter, or to respective
Citak,
Twitter accounts, at Matt Citak, at Giants WFAN.
Exactly.
Feel free to send some comments. Just make sure you tag us.
Now, in the meantime, hello, Dan Salomone. How are you?
Hi, can you hear me? I heard you're having some phone problems.
We are having some phone problems, but I believe
doing some construction over there. They knocked something out.
They're doing a lot of things over here as they continue to deal with the Giants' construction issues. But Dan, we're so glad to have you on the show, and we're just being a little bit MacGyverish here.
Paul is holding his phone up to the microphone right now.
we're being MacGyverish.
It's good. They just stopped the lawnmowers on the ninth green, so we're good.
I love it. Well, look, I feel that it's so important that you went out there. You took a tremendous amount of effort and time, right? Blood, sweat, and tears to make it out to Phoenix. There's no way I was going to let you, not come back without being on the program. So Giants head coach John Harbaugh earlier today spoke for about a half hour, as we understand, during the NFL coaches breakfast that they have during these league meetings. And one thing that we've already heard Matt was able to glean off of your Twitter is that he did confirm the training camp down in West Virginia. Were there any further details about the training camp issues that you can let us in on besides the fact that we know the West Virginia thing is going to happen?
No, other than it seemed like it was a done deal when he was interviewing with the job. They kind of asked him about it during the process, and he said, yeah, let's do it. He's, excited for that opportunity. It's kind of rare these days that teams, get away. Teams just stay around the facility now these days, but he says it's a good opportunity for the team to come together. It's a young team with a new staff. It's a good opportunity, he said, to get up in the hills in West Virginia and kind of bond. They can go out to dinner together, have the off day together, and be a good time to come closer away from the facility. And then the other part of that too is he's confirmed there will be he was talking with a coach on the way in, we don't know what coach, but a joint practice is definitely one for sure, maybe two with another team, 1 day apiece. So that's where it stands with that.
We were speculating on maybe because the Giants will be in West Virginia, Carolina's right across the border, that potentially the Panthers might make sense.
Yeah, you never know. We'll see when that time comes.
All right, so now I gotta ask, since not even looking at your Twitter, but just looking at the beat reporters' Twitters and NFL Twitter, one of the buzziest things to come out of Coach Harbaugh's presser was the question or questions he was asked about a certain former wide receiver for the New York Giants who is currently a free agent. So can you just tell us what Coach said about?
I have no idea who you're talking about. No, he said, of course, about Odell. He said his stock answer, you look at every option. If he's an option, they will look. He did say, they text a lot. They talk a lot, and he says he's one of his favorite people, not even one of his favorite players in the world. He said one of his favorite people in the world. But it's kind of like everything, if it's an option, they'll look at it, and it's always about if it'll work for the Giants, they would do it.
Did Coach Harbaugh at all indicate how busy or how much more the Giants might do? We know they've added nearly 24 players, either re-signs of their own or going out and signing over a dozen players from other teams. Did he indicate to you whether or not they've kind of put the brakes on adding additional players at this moment?
I wouldn't say that. He kind of kicked off everything about just kind of a general thing where they stand after free agency. They say, they start to establish, what they're going to be about. It's always about finding the person at the right place, right time, right price. That's kind of what Ozzie Newsome kind of was their philosophy there. You get them where you can, when you can. And then going on, I know that question kind of goes into the offensive line, where things stands there. And he said, it's like the team. It's a work in progress. They still have some more in free agency. They have the draft, and they also have, their roster to deal with there and go from there.
In fact, can I follow up on the offensive line before I go back to Matt? Evan Neal was a name who we've talked so much about over the years, and then suddenly, and maybe surprisingly to almost all of us, re-signs with the Giants. How much was asked about the plans for the current offensive lineman on the roster and on the depth chart, and specifically, did he address Evan Neal at all?
Yeah, he was asked about him, and Zudu kind of in the same boat, and that's kind of when he pulled out a quote from George Bernard Shaw, of all people. And he wanted to make sure, I want to make sure I get the quote right. He wanted to make sure he got the quote right. Some men see things as they are and ask why. Others dream things that never were and ask why not. That's kind of Harbaugh's philosophy with them. He said, they're excited. He remembers them from the draft process. They haven't been able to break through yet. That's kind of where that quote from Shaw came in. And he said the interesting thing, which I thought was interesting, is they kind of laid out a vision to him and to the staff about where they are, what their dreams are, how they're getting there. And he said they all have big dreams, and if they're going to fulfill their big dreams, why not do it in their building?
Wow. Well, that's it's very admirable for sure. He did not indicate whether or not Neal's going to try tackle, or did he perhaps say we're going to bring him in as a guard?
No, nothing specific like that. I think it's more just a general get him in. They haven't even, he made the point, we haven't even, they haven't even gotten the whole team together for a workout yet. So I think they'll take that as that comes. And that was one of the things he said in his introductory press conference. I said, talking this time, is great, but he just can't wait to get the players at the building, and that starts soon.
Yeah, so Coach obviously spoke for over half an hour, so I'm sure he, touched on several different new players in the building, but I just saw your tweet about one of them in particular. So what exactly did he have to say about Isaiah Likely and his potential role in the offense and how he might be leaned on?
Yeah, he talked about how important it is to know a player, that you can kind of create a vision for him. He's seen him in every circumstance. He called him, he's a playmaking football player, and he's going to love kind of when it goes into, he said, coaches always have a fun way of looking at things and saying things. He said Jackson Dart will like him in his line of vision, which I thought was an interesting way to put it. He's got a big catch radius. He can make plays after that. And also he also complimented his perimeter blocking, which will show up in the run game.
Was there anything said about Tremaine Edmonds, the Giants' new middle linebacker, who obviously was one of their higher profile signings?
Not specifically. Isaiah Likely was really the most specific he got on a player, or was asked about a player. But that kind of goes into the, stopping the run. That's been a problem. He said we better fix it. He said he's kind of, his thing basically he's told the team, you can live with a T. Higgins or Jamar Chase winning a jump ball on the red line, but the thing you can't live with is when a team gets 4 or 5 yards. He says that's a disaster, that you can't breathe, you can't play that way, so you have to play on your terms by stopping the run. And obviously that's where that signing comes in. And
sticking with the run, but to the other side of the ball, I just saw that he was asked about at least one prospect in this upcoming draft.
Yeah.
So, and he happens to be a, elite running back. So I guess what did he have to say about Jeremiah Love?
Well, first of all, you kind of said, he understands the business side to things of, positional value and all that stuff. But, his business is football. This is a football team. It's a football business. And they're trying to make fans happy and, by winning games. But he said, I think the question was posed, would you agree basically that he's a very good prospect? And Harbaugh said, very, very, and you can probably add a couple varies on top of that.
Not.
And then
Go ahead.
Oops, sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead, Dan.
No. And speaking of the run game, and he was also asked about, is this kind of a return of bully ball, kind of with the, obviously with Ricard signing and all that. He said, that's great, but you can't live in just that world alone. So they want to be multiple. They want to have a lot of different elements to the offense. Fun way he put it. I think he said he wants the offense to be elegant enough to deal with complicated defenses, but still, run the ball when they need to.
All right. So I think the other thing that I got to ask you about, and we understand that sometimes there are very rosy pictures painted about all prospects because, after all, some of it's a smokescreen. Some of it is just you just want to be nice about and professional about the guy. But the other day, I guess John Harbaugh was on a podcast. You may have heard about this, Dan, because he was talking about one of your favorite players. Caleb Downs. And he actually used the words potential Hall of Fame in the same sentence as Downs. Did that topic come up at all?
It did not. It did not, actually. Nothing too specific. I was wondering that, too. But again, like to your point, it's also about what he's asked about. He wasn't asked specifically about Caleb Downs in this, but I think it would go back to the same, stock answer about free agency. If it's going to help the team, they would do it. And obviously, he has a track record of success, with safeties and everything.
Sure.
So you're telling me Coach spoke for over half an hour. You were there the whole time, and you did not ask him one question about any of the Ohio State guys?
Yeah. I was wearing my Ohio State shirt underneath my
now
he's from Ohio. I know he's got the Michigan ties, but
no doubt.
He knows Ohio players. Yeah.
No doubt. All right. Is there anything that we may have missed or that went under the radar with Coach Harbaugh today? And then I would also ask, now, what does the rest of this schedule look like? Because I believe Joe Shane is supposed to talk tomorrow or this afternoon.
He's going to talk in a couple hours, so pretty shortly here. But yeah, no, I think he had some good lines on Dart. And he kind of says he does so much. He can live in a bunch of different worlds. Was his quote. He wants I think we talked about it a little bit before. He wants the offense to be high powered, but there's so many different elements to the offenses that he has run before, and he likes that Jackson, he can play in all those different worlds, power, drop back, RPO, run everything. And he had the quote, "I'm not sure what he can't do." So it's a good sign there. And then maybe the last thing, he just talked about, kind of the New York experience, being the coach of the Giants. He said he got to meet Spike Lee when he was at the Knicks game. He said that was awesome. And he also went out to Keen's Steakhouse. I'm not sure if that was the same night, but I'm sure Citak has been there. He goes to every restaurant in the
Keen's
city.
is very good. I'm not going to lie.
You probably saw him there.
All right, Dan Salomone, thank you so much for your time today. We're going to let you relax for a couple hours and then gear up for the Joe Shane interview. And I guess we'll talk to you tomorrow morning or tomorrow during the show and find out more about what Joe said.
Sounds good. No relaxing. I got to write up everything I just told you.
I hope you're going to do it outside at least. Enjoy the sun.
Did they give you a transcript at least?
No, not yet.
Oh, come on. The league's got to get on the stick.
I know. The sun does feel good, though.
Did I hear it was 90 degrees, Dan? Is that true?
Yeah, and it was even like 15 degrees hotter last week, I guess. This is cold, I guess, 90 degrees.
Wow. Yeah. All right.
This whole winter felt like a fever dream. It was just snow, and then we merged with John Harbaugh as head coach, which still is kind of unbelievable until you see him in a Giants polo.
Well, we appreciate you checking in with us and working through these technical difficulties. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
All good. Thanks, guys.
Dan Salomone, senior writer for Giants.com, chatting with us here on Big Blue Kickoff Live, giving us the update on John Harbaugh's coach's breakfast out at the NFL League meetings. And by the way, it has been reported by several outlets, and I don't want to let this conversation go without mentioning John Mara, who is battling cancer, did attend the NFL meetings. He is out there in Phoenix, and that is just absolutely wonderful news as he continues his very brave and very, very difficult fight with a nasty health issue. And we're just so glad, to see him out there, because he did not travel with the team during the season.
No.
Medically, it was not advisable. And so that to me is a tremendous headline that just overwhelms everything else. So I did not want to let that go unnoticed, although obviously John is not making himself available to the media while he is out there.
But just the fact that he's there is obviously awesome to see.
Totally awesome. Now, what I will do is suggest that we talk about maybe some of the NFL rule proposals.
We got a lot of comments.
Let's go
for the comments.
We're going to go through those. We're going to go through those first, but I just want to say if you have any thoughts, too, about the NFL rules proposals, which are going to be voted on during the course of the week at the league meetings, that would be a great topic as well that we can discuss, because I'm sure we will both have some opinions and may even disagree on a few of these.
We typically do disagree.
So we'll see. Maybe we do. Maybe we don't. I don't know. But that's also an open book as well as we try to navigate through the chapters of today's program. In the meantime, hashtag Giants Chat on Twitter or to the Giants YouTube page. So, my man, go at it.
All right, well, real quick first, 11 Imani asks what time is the Joe Schoen interview and will we be able to see it? I believe he's speaking at 12:30 local time, which would be 3:30 this afternoon here, Eastern time. That one you will not be able to see, though. I don't know if any of these are really being recorded or anything. I mean, maybe like an NFL Network. I don't think the Giants are filming that. But Dan will write up anything important that Joe says, and you'll be able to find an article on Giants.com, as I'm sure all of the beats will be writing about anything he says of note as well.
I'm not even sure how many of the writers from the press room made it out to Phoenix. A few of them did. I don't know how many of them. And in terms of TV coverage, the NFL Network doesn't typically cover the league meetings like they do at the Combine, where you'll see a lot of podium stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the NFL Network will do a lot of podium stuff at the Combine, and you'll get to see a lot of the coaches.
Yeah, I mean, Coach, he didn't even speak at a podium. He was set at a table. That's why it's like what's it called? The breakfast?
That's what they call it.
Whatever.
The coach's breakfast.
Coach's breakfast.
Yeah.
He was literally sitting at a table and just surrounded by the beats. It wasn't like a big podium set up like your normal, typical press conferences. So.
Yeah,
it's a little more casual.
And that's the way it's been for years. And so typically, there'll be somebody out there, whether it's a local station or it'll be perhaps ESPN or NFL Network. They'll usually take some video and you'll see some clips that'll come out over the course of the day. But I've never known anybody to be able to actually take a whole coach's presser and make it available. I've never known that.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's something that at least us at the Giants, we have not really done in the past. You know, I've obviously been helping run the website for 7 years now. I can't remember putting up a video of the GM or coach speaking at these league meetings, but
I don't ever remember seeing that.
But typically if I receive it, and then it goes up on Giants.com.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we get a video later today.
So Dan Salomone, who is, again, our senior managing editor at Giants.com, he is out there. I'm sure he will continue tweeting as often as possible during Joe Schoen's presser. So that would be one way to try to follow. And then, of course, again, we'll recap with Dan tomorrow during the program. 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time live. And, if you guys have some things you want to ask, fire them off to us, and we'll try to see if we can get a little bit more from Dan.
Yeah. All right. Back to the comments. CGC Torag says Reese or trade down at 5, and that's Orvell Reese from Ohio State. Why? Because he's the only legit top 5 talent in this entire draft class. And yes, that includes Mendoza. Okay, that's an interesting take. Orvell Reese is a phenomenal player. I think he's probably the favorite to be the number 2 pick to the Jets. And number 2, it seems to be in most mock drafts, that's the popular pick at number 2. So, quite frankly, I don't think he is making it down to 5. It would be great if he did. I would be very interested if he were to make it down to 5, but I don't know how likely that is.
Last week I asked you if Reese should somehow drop to 5, what would you do? And we both said we jump. And I asked John Schmelk as well. The next time I had him on the program after you, and I said, I asked Matt, John, what do you think? He's like, well, you got to take him.
Yeah.
So I think
there's
we
a
all
reason
agree.
why most people think he's going to be the number 2 pick. If he somehow drops to 5, that also likely means that some of these other guys that are being discussed with the 5th pick, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Love, some combination of those 3 are not going to be there at 5 if Marvel Reese is still available. So that would make it even more enticing to take him at 5 if he happens to be there.
And here's what, and I think we would all agree, I didn't go further on this, but I think we would all agree on how you would do this. You take him at 5 if he slips, and you play him next to Tremaine Edmonds. And then if Tibbs leaves at the end of the year in free agency, then you worry about maybe making him part of the mix for the edge rusher thing. But I think for the first year, he's an inside backer. He's an off-ball guy.
Probably. I mean, if that were the case, especially because Micah McFadden is now also back, you have the luxury of potentially being able to move him around. I'm not saying you should move him to a different position every single snap, but you could have him primarily line up maybe next to Tremaine Edmonds, but you could also then, in certain packages, have him go up front and line up with, have him, Kayvon, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, a 2026 version of that, the NASCAR package that we saw 20 years ago. It opens up a lot of possibilities of what you could potentially do.
No doubt.
We were just told that the phones are now working again.
So you can dial us up.
Please call us up. We'll continue just quickly going through these rest of the comments since you guys took the time to put them out there. But the phones are back. If you want to call and chat with us, please give us a call.
201-939-4513. In the meantime, let's go through the list.
All right. Okay. The next about 5 comments here are all about the same topic. Odell Beckham Jr. So JCNY718, 11 Amani, TT Tom 13, Mandalorian 9. Everyone is talking about Odell, and from the comments, it's it says enough with the OBJ. It's talking about it's more nostalgia than anything. That is where I'm gonna have to say I disagree. If the Giants were to bring Odell Beckham Jr. back, it would not be purely for nostalgic reasons. That is not how you run a football team. If they bring him back, it would be because John Harbaugh, Joe Schoen, the coaching staff, the front office think he's got some gas left in the tank. So if it happens, that is the reasoning. It's not just because of what he did for this franchise over a decade ago. We'll see if anything actually happens. It's just talk right now. There are several interesting veteran free agents at the wide receiver position that are still available, that are not Odell Beckham Jr., that actually, played and had some success last year. I mean, Jawan Jennings is still a free agent. Deebo Samuel is still a free agent. Stephon Diggs is still a free agent. Keenan Allen is still a free agent. Those 4 guys I just mentioned the contract that they demand will vary. Some will be more expensive than others. All 4 of them would cost more than whatever. If Odell does sign, it will likely be for the minimum. So all 4 of those guys, I would have to guess, would probably get more, at least if you're adding in incentives and stuff. But yeah, there are still numerous interesting options at the wide receiver position. It's not just Odell, even though he seems to be the one that most people want to talk about for whatever reason.
Well, yeah. I think ultimately the Giants, unless they do some more contract machinations, don't have a lot of cap room left, which certainly to some degree, and again, we always know it's fluid, but to some degree it would limit the kind of guy at the moment they would be interested in.
Yes, for sure. But as you mentioned, that the cap situation always is very fluid. There could still be more players that are currently on the roster that could get released. There are contracts that could be restructured. So there certainly are ways to create more cap space. So just because the number is, potentially low right now doesn't mean a lot more money can't be opened up pretty easily if the Giants choose to. If there's a move to be made that the Giants think that will greatly improve the team, that is within reason and within their budget, trust me, some sort of move will be made to free up some cap space in order to make that move possible.
Just remember, too, Odell Beckham Jr. Has been out of football for a year.
Yep.
Okay. So any team that's even thinking about entertaining a deal with him, they're going to want to put him through a workout and a physical.
For sure.
And figure out, okay, is it even worth him as a player having that conversation? I don't think anybody knows right now. And to this point, by the way, I haven't seen any indication anywhere that he's actually had any visits with anybody in quite a long time.
No, I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like if he did have an official visit, that would have to be...
probably would know about it,
that would have to be submitted and be part of the league transaction wire if that were to happen.
Everything's been silent, right? You haven't heard a word.
If that were to have happened, it would have been very much reported and discussed throughout all the NFL talking heads or in the media and stuff, and I have not seen anything about that. Right now, it's just all buzz and speculation. That's not to say it can't happen. It's obviously only March 30th, and there's still several months to go before training camp even begins, but right now, I would say it seems to be more just, fans or media members talking in order to stir up a conversation versus actual genuine NFL interest.
I concur. All right. Folks, remember, you can subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. Got all kinds of long-form interviews there with Giants personnel, NFL personnel, and dignitaries and analysts that cover Big Blue and the league. Just go to giants.com/podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget, if you're on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star positive review. Lets us know that you really do appreciate what it is that we're doing. Okay, do you have another item to throw up?
We got two about training camp situation. JCNY718 mentioned that they are also doing construction in the Citi Field parking lot as well. That is true. There is a big project being built, a developmental area being built there. So it will make parking difficult to go to Mets games. I would suggest taking the subway, but I have that luxury of living in the city. So
I was going to say that's going to be pretty nasty around there too.
Yeah, and then Ross C from Levittown says, I think going to a different location is going to be great for this team and new coaching staff. It will do the guys good to get away for 2 weeks and bond. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. We see teams kind of discuss that all the time. When you get into the regular season and the closeness and the tight-knit group that's like evident to the media within the locker room, guys will then go back and say like, yeah, a big reason for that was because we spent a week or 2 weeks during training camp off campus, basically getting to know each other and really bonding. And especially this year with so many new players on the roster, so many new contributors, an entirely new coaching staff. I completely agree. Not to say it's, that every player is going to love, obviously, leaving their family for a couple of weeks. I certainly am not that part. I'm not, pumped about leaving my wife and my dog, but it's
they're happy.
My wife, maybe.
Trust me, my family can't wait to get rid of me.
But it really says something when, you have 2 weeks where there's no one else really around. It's just the guys in the locker room and the coaches, and that's pretty much it. You're forced to spend time with each other, and it's not just on the practice field. Normally in training camp, you can leave once practice is over, obviously, and go home to your respective house. Everyone's going to be staying together in whatever the arrangements are in West Virginia. So they're going to have to be forced to spend extra time together, and I think that will go a long way in helping this new locker room, including the coaching staff, really mesh and come together.
I don't know what the updated number is for 2026, but when I say a very heavy majority of teams have training camp at home these days, for a lot of reasons, including business and economic and marketing and so forth and so on, that's just the way the league has gone. And so very few teams now go out of town for training camp, but whatever. Let's go to a phone call since we have one. Ralph from Hackensack is on line one. You're the first caller, believe it or not, on BBKL today. Hello.
Hey, Paul. Hey, man. How you guys feeling?
Good to talk to you.
How you doing, Ralph?
Good, thanks. I just wanted to bring up the tight ends, what you guys thought about. I haven't watched Baltimore Ravens too much, so I wanted to ask you guys, do they usually use 2 tight end sets, and what do you guys see them doing with Isaiah Likely and Theo Johnson?
2 and sometimes 3. They love heavy tight end packages in Baltimore.
Yeah, especially since Isaiah Likely was drafted, which was 4 years ago. He's had 4 seasons in the NFL. The Ravens used both Likely and Mark Andrews on the field quite often. I mean, we obviously don't know 100% what the 2026 New York Giants are going to do, but based on what John Harbaugh ran a lot in Baltimore the last 18 years, I think it's safe to say that there will be a lot more 2 tight end sets being run this season than we probably grown accustomed to seeing.
Well, Giants have been one of the more heavy usage of 2 tight ends in the league.
For sure, but
there'll be more.
It's going to be more, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's a decent amount more. Like if you told me at the end of the season that the Giants ended up running 2 tight end sets 50% of the time, even more, I would say that does not surprise me in the slightest bit.
Yeah.
So they are going to use, and the thing with both Isaiah Likely and Theo Johnson is they are both capable of, lining up in line at the end of the line of scrimmage next to the tackles. You could also split them out wide and have them basically serve as like a big slot receiver. Both guys have that versatility, and I think we're going to see a lot of those two varying from, lining up on the line to out wide, switching it up, keeping the defenses on their toes as much as possible.
Okay. And the reason why I brought that up is I wanted to make another point about the draft, but I do like Theo Johnson a lot, so I didn't really know if there was like a tight end 1 or tight end 2 situation.
Well, likely, I've been saying for the longest time because of the Matt Nagy connection, you'll see him become the slot tight end. That's just what he's going to be. He'll be more of the slot tight end, and Theo will do other stuff, whether he's in line or as an H-back. I think likely he's going to get more slot tight end snaps than Theo will.
Yeah, I mean, look, just based on obviously the reported details of the contract Isaiah Likely signed, I would say wouldn't surprise me if he is on the field slightly more than Theo Johnson, but I don't think it's going to be a starter and backup situation. It's going to be more like a 1A, 1B. And again, both of them on the field a lot at the same time.
Matchups, scheme, situational. There'll be some weeks where I bet you Theo Johnson does get more snaps, and others where Likely's going to get more snaps.
Okay.
And also, it depends on score, right? If the Giants are way behind, then they're going to want to throw it around more. You'll probably see more Likely.
Yeah, and if the Giants are winning, which obviously we hope that happens a lot more this year, you could even see a lot more of, Chris Manhertz or whoever ends up being the blocking tight end on the roster could end up getting more snaps than one of the other 2.
Thank you, Ralph.
Okay.
Appreciate the call. Please call again another show.
Thank you, Ralph.
201-939-4513. Only got a few minutes left, but at least we have the phones up and running again. Walter in Monticello is on line 2 on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
How you doing, guys?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. I just wanted to talk about how good I think the Giants did in free agency.
Well, they were busy.
Yeah. Yes,
very busy.
And I'm glad to have Dawn here because I think she did a lot of things to open up some things to get a lot of free agents.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. I went over it. Dawn Aponte, by the way, came from the NFL. She was VP of in the front office football operations and cap stuff. She comes over to the Giants as their cap guru, as a Giants VP. And talking to somebody who really knows cap stuff, they said to me what they noticed right away about Dawn's contracts, the bulk of the contracts that she did this year, and we see a lot of one-year deals, of course, which is helpful when you don't have a ton of money to spend. But she was really, really good about using practically outside of void years, which the Giants still don't seem to really want to use. She used practically every other little bit of a nook and cranny and curve and trigger that you could come up with in terms of contracts to save the Giants as much cap room as they possibly could and squeeze these sardines into the can. And for example, I'll give you one. A number of the Giants' deals are reportedly based on, the fact that agents love to talk to the media and the media loves to post this stuff on Twitter. So we don't have official confirmation on this. But based on media reports, a bunch of these deals, Matt, especially the one-year deals, have not just incentives, but multi-layered incentives to where every 10 catches or every more extra 250 yards, there's another level of an incentive. Build on, build on, build on, build on. Which when you do that, obviously when the person doesn't reach it, you're saving all that extra money. But if they have the kind of year that the player thinks they can have, and if that turns out to be a tremendous signing, well, then they'll get more money. But a lot of that money, because it's all in the incentives, and it's going to get pushed into next year's cap.
Correct.
You also have appearance bonuses, snap bonuses, things of that nature, which also can help deflect money into the future. Not likely to be earned incentives also deflect money. Injury waivers also help to deflect money. The Giants went and pulled out a whole bunch of paper clips out of the box and started piecing a whole bunch of things together to get these contracts underway. So they were very aggressive. Aggressive is the word that I'm going to use in terms of finding ways to scrunch that cap as best as they possibly could. And, you know, more so than in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, when we've been just talking about Dawn, when she is, you know, came up in conversation on the show, we've mentioned that she obviously is coming from the league where she's worked pretty much the last decade. But prior to that, she worked over 2 decades for various teams around the NFL. She was with the Jets for 12 seasons, where she worked with Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells. She went to the league for a few years, then went to the Cleveland Browns as vice president of football and administration, where she handled a lot of the contract negotiations. She then went to the Dolphins for 7 seasons, where she worked with now the GM of the Giants, Joe Schoen, Dennis Hickey, who's part of the front office, before going to the league. So she has
So was Bill Parcells.
Yeah, Bill Parcells as well. So she has a ton of experience on the team side. I just wanted to point out, because I know every time we bring her up, we just talk about, oh, she's coming from the league where she was chief administrator of football operations for the last decade. But she worked over 2 decades prior to that for various NFL front offices. That's in very, very high up positions. So she is obviously very, very qualified, and clearly, as we've seen just from the last month of contract negotiations, clearly she knows what she's doing.
Oh, I think brilliant is probably a good word.
Job.
Yeah. I agree.
So I'm excited about this because they filled a lot of holes, I do believe.
Well, that's the idea, right?
Free agency, you know, not hungry.
That's the idea.
I mean, you go into an offseason with the ideal plan of attacking as many holes in the roster during free agency, so that when you get to the draft, you can just take the best player available. And I would say the Giants, you know, there's still some areas of the roster that clearly could use a little more work. It's obviously, as Coach mentioned before, the roster is still a work in progress, but they did a very good job of putting themselves in a position where 3+ weeks from now, when it comes time for the draft, especially at number 5, Giants can just take the best player on their board, regardless of the position.
Yes, I think they did so far so good.
Well, thanks for the call, Walter.
Thank you, Walter.
Yeah, thank you.
Please call us back another time, 201-939-4513. Do we have anything else on the YouTube?
Yeah, just 11 Amani. Dawn was a huge addition to this team.
No doubt.
Clearly agree. And 11 Amani also asking any ideas as to why void years are being avoided with this team. I mean,
there's a strong feeling that, you know, void years, when that you break out the credit card and you push those painful cap hits 2-3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, when you do that, the common sense says you better believe that you're really close this year. Because much like what the Rams did when they did it and they won a Super Bowl, the Eagles did it, they won a Super Bowl. If you do that and then don't win, and when I say win, I'm talking about the big one.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not talking about finishing with 10 victories and going 2 rounds in the playoffs.
No.
When I say win, you got to get the Lombardi. If you get the Lombardi, you could make the case that anything is worth getting the Lombardi. Whatever
100%.
price you pay, right?
100%. Yep.
But you fall short of the Lombardi, you wind up putting yourself at risk for some serious economic deficiencies and pain over the course of the next several years down the road.
Like we kind of have seen the last couple of years in New Orleans.
No doubt.
They did that for a decade. They just kept adding void years, kicking cap hits down the road, and they did not win a Lombardi.
No, they did not.
They had some good teams, but they did not end up winning a Super Bowl. And it led to them having the last, 2 years going into the offseason with the goal of just getting below the salary cap because they were so far above it the last couple of seasons. And now it was a huge news. I think it was earlier this month or last month. For the first time in however long, they finally were able to get below the salary cap.
Yep.
And it was a big deal. And obviously, again, they didn't win it all. So it's hard to say that it was worth adding those void years and kicking the cap hits down the road for them when they didn't end up achieving the ultimate goal.
And if you're the Giants, and right now you're John Harbaugh, and optimistically you're saying, I'd want to be in that playoff conversation, and why can't we be potentially a playoff team? Well, that's one thing. But he's not going around saying to people, we're Super Bowl contenders. He's not doing that. No. And so I think it's fair to say, and I don't want to speak for the people upstairs in the front office, but I think it's fair to say that when you see the way they've operated with these contracts and avoided 4 years as they have for the last several, they're telling you the same thing. They're not necessarily expecting and willing to roll the dice and say, well, we're going to add a bunch of void years on these deals because we think we got a shot to win it all in 2026. I think they're telling you that they're not thinking that way.
Yeah, I mean, look, as you mentioned earlier, the teams that typically go heavy on adding those void years in order to decrease salary cap hits for the upcoming season are teams that are considered Super Bowl contenders. I think the Giants are going to be a lot better this year than they were the last couple of seasons. I think they are very much heading in the right direction. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone that would consider them, a heavy Super Bowl contender or favorite for the 2026 season. Obviously, I hope this time next year, I hope it is a very different conversation. But
that'd be great.
That will take, a big step to be made this year. And again, all it takes is one really good season and having your young players that are on rookie deals still developing and taking the next step. And that could then change the equation and make your thinking a little bit different the following year. But right now, coming off the last couple of years that the Giants have had, wouldn't really make sense to be having several or even any contracts really that are heavy on those void years.
If you're Len from Maryland, you've been saying 2027 now for months. so maybe Len will tell you when it's time to put void years on deals, but it's not that time quite yet. The Giants aren't that close yet. Go ahead.
Okay, we got Jan Bogaki, 6134. The best thing we did in free agency was bring players with experience from a functioning system onto the team. They are going to bring that confidence into the culture. It's something we didn't do for years. But yeah, clearly some of the players that were brought in targeted pretty early on in free agency, players that have experience with either John Harbaugh or other members of the coaching staff. And yeah, I think some of them were clearly brought in to help, set a new culture.
Slew of guys with postseason experience too.
Yeah.
If you go take a look at it. Bunch of guys have been to the playoffs before.
For sure. Jan also commented a little earlier, in all caps, bring in a guard.
We've talked about that.
Yeah, and even Coach mentioned this morning, the offensive line is still a work in progress. I mean, right now there is no logical player on the roster that you can say, pencil him in or write him in pen as the starting right guard. So I think whether it's free agency or the draft, I think it's still very possible that another player or two added in, the interior part of the line.
Absolutely. And we've been talking about that for a while, so that shouldn't be a surprise.
Yep. And on a similar topic, 11 Amani commented for Azudu, I really hope they let him practice at guard. So much of his time as a Giant was wasted at tackle. Well, it seems clear that Coach Harbaugh is going to put him wherever they think he has the highest potential, whether that's inside or outside. We do not know yet. I'm sure Coach will address that pretty soon. Whenever the team comes back for the offseason workout program this coming month, I'm sure he will be asked about.
What's interesting about both Azudu and Neal? Neal, they talk about, you don't find too many men on the planet who have that size, that build, that length, that frame, et cetera, et cetera. Well, with Azudu, you don't find too many men on the planet who have that particular body size and have that kind of athleticism. So both Neal and Azudu have contrasting traits that coaches really would like to get their hands on. And Harbaugh obviously thinks that there's something here that he can, work with.
Yeah, I agree. They wouldn't have been brought back if that was not the case.
Clearly.
All right, last couple of comments here. Mandalorian 9 asked, who do you take if both Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles are both sitting there at 5? You want to go first?
I suppose I would probably take Arvell Reese because of the positional flexibility.
I agree. I think Arvell Reese, from just a pure talent perspective, I would have him in my personal rankings a little bit higher than Sonny Styles. I think position fit-wise, it's easier to see Sonny Styles, just plug him in as your middle linebacker next to Tremaine Edmonds and run with that for the next few years. But as Coach mentioned today, the Giants are in the business of just adding the best football players possible. So
correct. In
terms of those two, if it came down to it, I would lean a little bit towards Arvell Reese.
You can't go wrong, though.
No, if that were the situation the Giants were in, I would be over the moon excited.
And by the way, I don't see any way, in all honesty, how that could happen.
Me neither.
Both of those guys, two outstanding linebacker prospects being available at 5, I don't see it.
Then, all right, Mendoza 1. I guess Jeremiah Love would likely have to be one of the top.
He would have to be.
Picks 2, 3, 4.
Downs would have to be one of them, too.
Probably Downs, or, if a team falls in love with David Bailey and or Ruben Bain, although I think Ruben Bain is most likely will be a little bit lower in the top 10, but I guess David Bailey, Caleb Downs, and Jeremiah Love, but you're then talking about a safety and a running back both going in the first 4 picks.
Yeah.
If you want to have the whole conversation about position value, that's thrown out the window there. Okay, final 3. Lucas Life Lessons says, trade down with Miami for the 11th and 30th pick is my favorite option. That way we may be able to get Vega and Chase Bisontes. Round 2, Christian Miller. That would be the holy grail of events. I would say in an ideal world, yeah, that would be hard to argue. And John and I have talked about this on the show before, I don't think Miami is trading up from 11 to 5.
No.
I think if Miami were to do any sort of trade, it would maybe be moving up in the second round because they now have, I think, 4 third-round picks, 3 or 4 third-round picks. So trading one of those picks to move up from, I think they're at 45, around there, 45 to 37 for one of those third-round picks, I think would be a lot more likely. If that situation came where they offered us the 11th pick and the 30th pick, for me, that's a no-brainer. Move down 6 slots. You miss out on that first tier of guys, but
they're not giving you that.
Yeah, then that picks 11, 30, and 37. But I agree. I would be very surprised if they offered that sort of trade package.
And in reality, also, if you're the Giants, you don't want to get too cute here. You really don't.
No.
If one of those really top guys who you honestly believe in so strongly is there at 5, you just take the guy.
Yeah.
Close the book and don't get fancy.
No. All right, final 2. 11 Amani, question for Paul. If hypothetically Reese was there at 5, but 3 teams came to us with trade offers that included several mouth-watering picks, would you consider it?
I say it all the time. It's got to be a Godfather offer, which means one you cannot refuse. So it's got to be mega. It's got to be clearly a ripoff, is what it comes down to for me. I would have to be absolutely positively, by everybody's opinion, ripping that team off. They would have to be dramatically overpaying for me to drop out of that spot. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I would say I pretty much agree with you. The only way I would slightly consider it, even if it's not the Godfather offer, would be if, we were only moving down to like the Commanders at 7. You're talking about moving down 2 picks where you're still most likely going to get one of those guys that you're considering at 5 anyway, and you can add a day 2 pick. I would consider that. It doesn't have to be, some over the moon type of offer, but it would have to be a trade in that 7, 8, maybe 9, but even 9, you're a good chance you're missing out on all these guys that we're discussing seriously at number 5. But I would have to, for me, I would have to still be in the top 10 unless it's that Godfather offer.
All right, folks. That'll do it, right? We're done? One more?
Last one.
One more.
Aiden Fink, why isn't the Tush Push ban considered again? The UFL banned it. You want to take this one?
Because the UFL has common sense.
I waited till the very end when we did not have much time to bring this one up because I know we could probably have another very long conversation about this one like we did last year.
Well, I think we both feel very strongly on each side of the fence, and the truth is there's no right or wrong answer. It's simply you have to agree to disagree on this. Some people like vanilla, some people like chocolate, and that's just the way it is.
I will say, just to answer the wording of Aiden's question, why isn't being banned? Because the Eagles were not as successful with it in 2025. So all of a sudden, the urgency to ban it from other teams across the league didn't seem so urgent anymore, in my opinion, is why it is not really being discussed right now. I think many people would agree with that.
That perception is probably very close, or if not, the reality.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because I think the people who stand against the play, like myself, believe the play should be banned, and I don't care which team had success with it. Honestly, for me, I know it's hard for people to believe. They think that it was an Eagles thing for me. It was never an Eagles-based thing for me. I don't think the play should be allowed, period.
And that's fair.
You know?
I mean, I remember you and I got in a big argument about this last year. But
trust me, though, it's not Eagles-based for me.
No,
it never was.
I believe you. But again, I agree with you.
The Bills used it the second most.
I agree with you. That can't be the reasoning behind banning it, just whether or not one team is particularly good at it.
That'll do it, folks, for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. As always, join us at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a 1-hour live edition of the show, 201-939-4513. It is presented, as always, by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants, and we have come to you from the Giants Podcast Studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. From Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. So long, everybody.